By the way, can I ask you a question about one of our mutually favorite people?
Of course.
And the question is from my wife, Kirsten, who is also a fan of the Cowboy, Joe West, the retired umpire.
Yes.
And so she asked me to ask you, what is the Cowboy doing in the early stages of his retirement as the greatest umpire in the history of Major League Baseball? What is that rascal up to?
Well, he started a podcast, and I was a guest on his podcast last week. I don't know when it's airing, but
I love it.
He had a list of people. It was like the governor's ball or something. He had anybody in baseball is on his list to contact there. I was at the top of the list. I'm not sure why, but he's got coaches and managers and other umpires and dignitaries, politicians, all over the place. So
I have to pause to tell producer Dave Solomon that he's got to book Cowboy West on our show just to give him a chance to promote this great podcast. And I'll listen to it this weekend. See, I'm glad that we asked that question because that's exciting to actually hear that he's doing a podcast.
I spent an hour with him last Friday at a studio in town here. He was in town to record a couple of them, so I think he's going to be on the road doing some other ones. But he asked him, was he going to many baseball? Was he watching baseball? And he said no.
He's probably had his fill for a while. So, yeah, and the Cowboy and his another old friend of both of ours, his wife Rita, and glad to hear that he's in the loop from time to time doing his work. I figured he'd be in for some media work. What I want to know, though, is is there any singing involved in this podcast, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge. I left before that broke out, maybe, but I don't think so. But that could be on future podcasts. It certainly was not on this one.
Well, to bring up a memory from the road, we had the commission. I was along as the hanger-on, but they didn't seem to mind. They liked me okay. So we were many years ago. We were in San Diego for a Cardinals series, and Cowboy was working the series, and Angel Hernandez was working the series. And anyway, a friend of the Cowboy, I think, a family, they invited us over for a cookout post-game. It was a day game. And we went, and it was just lovely. We had a great time. I enjoyed talking with Angel Hernandez and kind of reconnecting with Joe. But anyway, the evening ended up where we were in a living room or a home theater room or something, and we were watching Cowboy West, like his videos of him singing at various places. And it was quite entertaining. He's something else. So I'm glad to hear he's having some fun. Well,
you of course, you remember the time that we conspired to have our favorite saloon keeper, Trifon Panopoulos, ejected from a game at Wrigley Field with Cowboy Joe doing the honors.
That's the best story ever. I think some people probably have heard us tell it, and they're like, well, man, that's really unprofessional. No, it's not. It's practical jokes. So to tell the story real quick, we were out perhaps having a cocktail or two, and somehow the conversation got around to Trifon, one of Joe's favorite saloon keepers and ours as well, the late Trifon. And I don't know how it came up, but I'm sure you made the proposal that Joe should eject Trifon from Wrigley Field the next day. Joe had home plate. Trifon was, I say this, we both say this with affection, Trifon was obnoxious in that he would always get seats like literally right behind the Cardinals dugout through a Cubs fan. They do like a ticket exchange, right?
Right.
And he was always kind of preening and showing off, and we both said, look, this just simply will not do. He's got to calm. Someone has to get him to calm down. This peacock behavior will not do. So Joe said, so you want me to throw him out? Yeah, eject him. And Joe said, okay, I'll try to signal when I'm going to do it. So you pick it up from there.
Well, I was about the sixth inning or so, and he walks over to the box seats, and he motions an usher down and points at Trifon and says, get him out of here. And so he did. Of course, Trifon, always landing on his feet, went up to the stadium club and had even a better time. He wasn't watching the game anyway.
But I'll never forget because we were just watching Joe West like a hawk because we never knew when he was going to do it. He didn't give us an inning. And I just remember like just keeping my eyes trained on him. I wasn't even watching the game. And we knew what had happened like between innings. And I remember him looking up briefly towards us in the press box as if to say, here
we go.
Just watch. And Trifon was escorted from his seat and given the boot, at least for a while. So now what kind of umpire? See, who could not love an umpire like that?
I don't understand why anybody would dislike Joe at all. I mean, he's convivial. He's a great umpire. He has stories. He's, you can ask him anything. You can tell him, and you can make fun of him. He can make fun of you. What's better than that?
Yeah, no doubt about it. He really is a good guy and a lot of fun. And what a career. Well, Commish, it'll be good, to see what Newt Barr's been up to and whether he's going to be sharp enough to hit tonight. It's been a while, and it looked like it's a real good time for Sosa to play shortstop because DeYoung has had a tough couple 3 days, so it's probably good to get a little break there. So, and what do you make of the fact that Kisner's back in there?
Well, I think Molina will probably catch the other two guys. He'll catch Matz and he'll catch Hudson on the weekend. Kisner's going to catch, they say, more games than he last year. Well, he started 43 games last year, so we're talking 50 now or more. And he had a big game. He had a 3-run homer the other night to win the game against Kansas City on Tuesday. And that was with Hudson pitching. So, I guess maybe Kisner might catch Hudson on Sunday then, come to think of it. But I just think he wants to get him back in there because he played well.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, really, because, and this leads to the follow-up question. And you're right. He actually did play quite a bit last year, and he didn't hit it all, hardly. And that was a little disappointing. And I'm a guy that actually believes he can hit because that's a reason why they drafted him. And he had really good numbers all throughout the minor leagues. And I know it's the big show and it's different. But I wanted to get your veteran expertise. Do you think that if Kisner played a lot, and I don't even know how to define a lot, if he could get to 250, 300 plate appearances in one of these seasons, do you think his offense would come alive, or has that bus rolled away?
That's a good question. I haven't envisioned him as a regular catcher, but I could see him being a valuable backup and also somebody who could play. He came up as a first baseman too a little bit, and he won't play much there, of course, here. But I could see him being on your ball club. I don't see him being a regular player. I don't think he would hit enough. I don't know that he's a good enough catcher to be an everyday player, but he's a big league player, and catchers are a commodity. Most teams don't have just one good one; they like to have two because that's a very unstable position with all the injuries and the wear and tear it takes.
And when you were at spring training, Ivan Herrera, who's their top catching prospect, and he's viewed generally as the heir to Yadier Molina's job if he earns it. But what kind of buzz was there? What kind of conversations did you hear or have about Ivan Herrera's progress through the minors and his potential timetable to be ready?
Well, he's in AAA this year. He didn't play a whole lot in the spring because Kisner played a lot early, and then Molina came and played quite a bit as they went along. And they only had 14 games, so at a certain point, Marmol didn't have time to get 3 catchers ready for the big leagues since there were only going to be 2. So Herrera went out, and he's a big guy. He's got some power. He's got an arm. He works hard, so I think he is the heir apparent, but he will have to beat Kisner out. It won't be just handed Herrera next year. He'll have to beat Kisner out, and maybe Kisner can outduel him. It'd be interesting to see what Kisner does with 50 games and, let's say, 150 at bats. I don't know about 250, but 150 anyway, maybe 200.
Yeah, and Herrera, not that this matters much because the same was true of Juan Yepes a few days ago before he started hitting, and he's really been hitting. He's got 4 home runs now. But anyway, Herrera's off to a slow start down there, hitting 177. He's got 10 strikeouts and 17 at-bats. But he's always adjusted when he's moved up a level. So I'll be curious to see what happens when he gets comfortable, whether he'll start to put up some numbers.
Well, yeah, I keep an eye on Gorman, too. Now, Gorman's starting to hit. That Gorman-Yepez DH combination or some form with those two and Pujols could be quite effective toward the middle of the season or toward the end.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you because both of those guys are launching home runs now, and I just don't know. I just don't know what the Cardinals, have it in their minds to do with them in terms of 2022. I don't think they'll keep them down their entire season, but the end's rather full right now, so I'm not sure how that would work out, how they can get them involved at the big league team. And you just alluded to that, but could you elaborate? What do you think? What do you think a scenario is?
Well, a lot of this depends on Dickerson, who hasn't had much time either. They gave him a $5 million contract. You got to at least play him to see what you spent your money on. He hasn't been very impressive in the spring, and he's only had, one start. 2 starts,
maybe,
I guess.
Maybe
he
two,
had 2
yeah.
starts, and he had 1 single. And now Nootbaar's got the start tonight, and Pujols is going to play against the left-hander, Ashby, on Sunday. So maybe Dickerson will get a shot tomorrow. I don't know. But if Gorman is back as a DH, it would come at the expense of Dickerson. You don't have two, or maybe Nootbaar. Maybe Nootbaar will be sent out for more. There's a guy that probably needs to play some. If he sits on the bench a long time, and if you trust Dickerson as an outfielder, that's a big question now because he's doesn't have a good throwing arm, and he's not even though I won a Gold Glove several years ago with the Pirates, he's not considered a real good outfielder. So you don't have any extra outfielders besides Nootbaar on your club unless you put Edman out there and put Gorman at second. Then you've kind of weakened 2 positions there. Right.
Rick Hummel with us, the great Hall of Fame baseball writer from the Post-Dispatch and STL Today. I don't know that there's much to talk about with the starting pitching, and I'm not being dismissive. It's just a matter of time. I mean, they either settle in and pitch better, or then everyone's going to have a lot of anxiety. So we'll just see what happens, with Miklasz, Matz, and Hudson this weekend. But what are your impressions of the bullpen so far? Because they've had to pick up a lot of innings, so they've had a pretty busy job, even though the 2 rainouts certainly gave them enough rest. But what are your impressions of the bullpen?
I've seen of Helsley. And they've talked about him being, closer material, and I can see that. He's got 4 pitches. He can throw 100. And actually, before he got hurt last year, I think he was in 55 games. He had the most appearances on the club. So I like what I've seen there. I like what I've seen of Gallegos. I like what I saw of Verhagen yesterday in the 3 innings. I'm a little worried about Cabrera. He didn't look good in the spring, at least not on a regular basis. Wasn't throwing as hard as he has. So he allowed a big fly the other day when he got in the game.
Right.
So let's keep an eye on him. McFarland has been used only a little bit, and he got through 1 inning pretty well. So I like the bullpen okay. And the rotation, well, as you alluded to, there's some issues there. I thought Miklasz actually pitched pretty well for all the traffic that he had that first start he had against the Pirates. He only allowed 2 runs, and he had, a zillion base runners, and he pitched out of most of the trouble. Matz, wasn't very good in the last couple innings he pitched, and Hudson was, a couple home runs. But the bullpen has been a little better than I thought it was going to be, and we still haven't seen much of Palante and Brooks pitched yesterday. Of course, 2 of those guys made a second when they go down to 26 players, which will be for the remainder of the regular season until September. Then go back to 28 then. But I guy like Palante needs to go down the pitch. He's here because he was the most impressive of several rookies in the spring. But if you're not going to use him, he doesn't need to be here.
Kimish, I wanted to back up your point about Cabrera by just putting a number to it. Last season, and he pitched a lot and he was good. Last season, his 4-seam fastball, he averaged 97.8 miles an hour. So far this season, that 4-seamer is averaging 94.6 miles an hour. Now that's And the sinker, similar drop, too. Similar miles per hour, so it's pretty much the same thing. And that's, when a young, hard-throwing guy, loses, all of a sudden it's 3 miles slower coming out of his hand. That's not a panic thing, but that's not a good sign. So I don't know what's going on there. Do you think it's just a matter of him needing to build his arm up, or sometimes guys pitch through pain and don't say too much about it? What do you think? What would you attribute to if you would make your best guess?
Well, I think maybe some adrenaline of key situations would put him in a mood to throw harder. The game he came in against the Pirates, they were way ahead when he allowed the home run. And he pitched one other time, I think, and was okay. But in the spring, he did a lot of 94s and 95s, and that's good for the most part. Now, when Hicks comes down from 102 to 99, I don't think it's quite the same, because Hicks is not trying to throw 102 every time, but he is trying to throw 99. He's doing it. Cabrera, Oliver Marmol keeps saying there's more there in the tank, and he expects to see it, but we have not seen it.
Yeah, and that's something to keep an eye on. I thought Hicks looked really good the other night. What about you?
I agree. He's got this other slider now, which is about maybe 7-8 miles slower than the first one. He throws the other one at 87, 88, 89, and he's got one at 81. He's got two fastballs. He's got his great sinker that he can throw at 100, and he's got a four-seamer that he throws once in a while. Now he's got a changeup. Well, some guy's going to lose his socks if he sees that changeup coming in there.
No, that's what was impressive. And just like with Helsley, who you talked about, I've been a little bit of a Helsley skeptic, but that slider he was throwing has never looked better. That thing was just cruel almost, So, boy, those secondary pitches really matter, no matter how hard you throw.
Well, he could be a starter with the pitches that he has. The number of pitches he has 4. He has 2 breaking balls and a changeup and a fastball. But I think, and they think, he does more good for them in the bullpen, where I don't think they're entirely sold on Gallegos as the ninth inning guy every time. He was good the other day, and he's been good most of the time he's had that job in the 2 or 3 years he's been here. But I still liked him better in the 8th inning, 7th and 8th innings, when Reyes was starring as the closer for, several months. We can't forget what he did for he made the All-Star team, the first half of the season last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Your impressions of Albert Pujols so far, and again, I know, the Cardinals have played, less than a week's worth of baseball games because of those rainouts, so it's really tough to. And certainly, we're not trying to reach any conclusions here, but how do you think he looks, just in general?
Well, his body looks good. That's the best condition I've seen him in for a number of years. Granted, we have had very little chance to see him, but on TV and a couple appearances he made with the 2 California teams, 19 and 21. I think that his bat speed is good. What is he struck out once maybe so far, and he's hit the ball hard most of the time. He hit a ball hard that Wong flagged down yesterday. Another ball hard to left field. For a moment, I think he thought he was 22 trying to steal that base from second to third with Woodruff on the mound, and the catcher alertly pointed out to Woodruff, "Hey, you might take a look at this." He threw to third, and he was out. But that was not a great play. But the intent was there. Maybe the flesh wasn't willing.
That's a good way to put it. I'm really impressed by his physical conditioning. He's also using something that's new, because I just happened to wander around looking for something to watch late at night. And, actually, it was on the MLB app that I kind of put on my TV downstairs and watch late-night games through that. But they also have these little mini features. And there was a studio segment with Mark DeRosa and Sean Casey, and they were looking at Pujols' batting stance through the years and how it's changed based on him getting older, but also, having a sort of set up differently to account for some of the injuries he's had with his legs and his feet. So anyway, They said that he's using a leg kick this year, and that's true. We saw it yesterday again, and he hit the home run with the leg kick, and I assume he's using it every time he swings, but I didn't even realize it. And they were saying, because they went through a lot of tape, that they believe it's the first time in his career he has used a leg kick, and that's kind of interesting too. And Casey thought that it actually would help his bat speed and just kind of propel him a little better. So that's something that I found really interesting and certainly worth watching.
Yeah, and I think he's also maybe a little bit more upright than he has been. He seemed as if he crouched a little bit more in his first 11 years here, and then maybe most of the years when he played in California. But the leg kick is something to keep an eye on, and I have been impressed with how he's swinging the bat. And I don't know that. Well, the question is how often do you play him at the expense of these other guys? I mean, if he keeps hitting, he deserves to play. Then you have to be real careful how you manage the late innings, because it's going to be hard to score him on base hits. There was a ball the other day that rattled around in the corner, and the outfielder made a good play, and Albert stopped at third correctly, but maybe a faster guy might have scored. It was only the fifth inning. I don't think he'd run for him in the fifth. But you might have to run for him in the seventh or the ninth. They just haven't had any close games where they've been trying to come from behind. The two games they've lost, they lost pretty substantially, 9-4, and yesterday was 5-1. So there wasn't that kind of drama late for them when they're coming back. But I'd play him as long as you think he can get the bat around, even against right-handers. I mean, that was a pretty good right-hander he saw yesterday, and he had some nice swings at him.
He really did. I mean, I thought that was really eye-opening because he wasn't overmatched at all, and that's been an issue. Although it's not that he in the last 3 years or whatever it's been, that he strikes out a lot against right-handers, but he just hasn't had much hard contact. So he hit the ball really hard a couple times yesterday. So I'm curious. This is such a fascinating thing because maybe there's a chance he can do more than we thought. That remains to be seen, but there are some hopeful indicators. So looking forward to that. Well, I know I don't know what you're doing this weekend, holiday weekend, but I hope you have you and Melissa and family have a beautiful weekend and peaceful weekend.
Same to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And next time you correspond with Doc Hummel, please tell him I said hello. Your son.
I'll do. I'll be appearing in Cincinnati next weekend at this juncture, so we'll talk at some point during the week, even perhaps that night. But I look forward to seeing what that's. This is the longest trip of the year they're on. They're 11. 10 games in 11 days. They don't have any trip that long. The rest they have a couple other 3-team trips, but not 4, 3, and 3. So we'll have a pretty good idea what we're looking at here. They will have played, and they're going to play but they're going to play the first 7 anyway, 4 in Milwaukee and 3 in Miami, because those can be closed stadiums if you need them to be. Cincinnati next weekend, 3. You never know; it could rain over there too. That's a good time to be. I think any time's a good time to be playing them because they're not very good.
No, they're not. Oh my goodness, they're not. They got a couple, rookie pitchers that I think are going to be really good, but they're not there yet. But that's kind of a mess right now. It really, truly is. Kamish, thanks as always. Always value our opportunities to talk. So thank you so much.
You bet, sir. We'll talk next week.
And I'm going to have to go off on a search for the Cowboy Joe West podcast now, and I'll do it.
I got to hear that myself, as a matter of fact.
Take care. We'll talk next week.
All right, man. Thanks.
All right, that's our friend Rick Hummel. One note before I go, we were looking at some minor leaguers. Matthew Liberatore had a better start the second time out at AAA. I mean, his first one was bad. But, look, nothing's really normal about preparing for the season. Nothing was normal, I should say. But he was better. I think that was earlier this week. His second start, 5 innings, he gave up 2 runs, including a homer, 6 hits. But he struck out 6, and he didn't walk anyone. So that's the key thing there. It's so maybe that'll get him going a little bit because you never know. They may need him, right? I don't know what their hoped for timetable is, but a lot of it will depend on how well he pitches. Well, that's going to do it for tonight, and it's also obviously going to do it for this week.